The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to everybody who's with us on our YouTube live stream at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, Monday through Thursday. YouTube.com/The David Pakman Show. Also welcoming everybody from the We Survive Bush, You'll Survive Obama Facebook page. The I Love It When I Wake Up in the Morning and Barack Obama is President Facebook page. And the Too Informed to Vote Republican Facebook page. Lewis, we cannot use the term mainstream media anymore.
What are we going to call it?
Corporate media. I've really been thinking about this a lot over the last, 20 years. And just over the last couple of days, I finally actually made progress on this thought process. And I've used the terms corporate media, mainstream media, homogenous corporate media, the three-letter news media, all of these terms kind of interchangeably. But it's not really relevant to continue using the term mainstream media because there's nothing mainstream about the views that are portrayed as common on the corporate media. So, for example, people know, according to polling, that there isn't really a controversy over the effect of humans on climate change, right? But corporate media says there is. They do the false balance game where you bring on a scientist who is part of the 0.16% to say it's kind of unclear what the reality of climate change is, and a scientist who's part of the 99.84% who believes that there is something to be said about the effect of humans on climate change. And they are portrayed as having equally valid and equally controversial opinions, when the reality is that's not the case. What's mainstream about that? It's a corporate media presentation for profit and to not be accused of liberal bias, but there's nothing mainstream about it.
Fair enough. But coincidentally, it is the mainstream media.
But here's the problem. It's mainstream in the media world,
right,
but it's not mainstream in terms of Americans and people watching.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's nothing mainstream about these ideas. Another example, polls show that more and more Americans are against corporate bailouts, bank welfare, this kind of Wall Street governance that exists in this country. On corporate media, it's presented as something people aren't outraged by. The major discussions about this are, is it good for the economy or not good for the economy? Forgetting about the ethics, morals, and values of it, which people in this country basically reject. There's nothing mainstream about that point of view, Natan.
No, and I would say that just generally, most of the things that we look for when we compare major media news organizations like CNN, MSNBC, Fox, etc., we look at the way they're covering an issue, but the main way that they sort of distract us from issues that actually the mainstream of U.S. residents and citizens agree with is by not even covering them at all, number one. And then if you do cover it, the context in which you cover it, where the different news media are going to disagree on, has nothing to do with the problems that are actually the relevant ones.
Well, Natan's getting at the next example, which I was going to mention, Lewis, which is polls show Americans are aware and upset about significant wealth inequality in this country. The only real discussions you hear about that on corporate media are very limited in scope, often portraying the term wealth inequality as kind of opening the door, at least, to socialist or communist ideas. And it's not really taken very seriously. Occupy helped make it a little more commonplace, but Natan's making a very good point there.
And still during Occupy, we saw a shift from the purpose of the demonstrations to, someone drunk lying on the ground, breaking glass bottles,
right,
or
urinating
yelling
on
at
police
a cop.
cars.
Yeah.
So the other reason we can't use, I'm not going to use the term mainstream media anymore when talking about the corporate media, is that the term has also kind of been co-opted and manipulated by Sarah Palin and some others on the right to make a totally different point, which is to say they talk about the lamestream mainstream media as being liberal. And that, as we know, is just so drastically inaccurate that we can't even really address it today. But it's yet another reason to stay away from the term mainstream media, because really what we're talking about is the corporate media. I'm going to be making an effort not to use the term mainstream media anymore. It's the corporate media, the kind of profit over truth media. And that's it was an enlightening weekend, Lewis. And this is what I'm now going to do. I'm going to make every effort.
I'm with you on this, and I will try to do the same. But let's correct each other if we catch each other saying mainstream media.
Well, speaking of the speaking of the corporate media. See, I'm doing it already, Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was a fake one.
All right.